Welcome back to the One Question Leadership Podcast. I'm Glenn Caruso, head football coach at the University of St. Thomas, and so happy you tuned in. You know, quite often we get so caught up in the daily grind of work or coaching or recruiting that we don't often take time to reflect. I would encourage everybody to take just a few minutes each day to try and see the bigger picture, to stop and realize that in the end, we're going to be judged on what we choose to believe, who we choose to love, and what we decide to leave behind in the hearts and minds of not just our players, not just our coworkers, but also our children. And remember, if we're doing it right, we're coaching football for life.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown, and welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast, where we highlight executive and organizational leadership. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at 1Q Leadership. Our guest today is Coach James Franklin. Coach Franklin is the head coach at Penn State. Greetings, Coach. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, appreciate the opportunity to be on.
Now, Coach, you've been the head coach Penn State since 2014. I'd say that's 6 years. You were head coach at Vanderbilt before there. In the profession since 1995, so that's roughly 25 years. Of course, I think the first time I met you, I was a couple of years in at AFCA. NCAA had just started some of its academies, and I believe at the end of the academy, you had grabbed all the guys who participated, got them together, and told them, hey, let's stay in contact with each other. So as we grow in this profession, we can make sure we're doing the things we need to do to become successful as head coaches. And I always appreciated that, man. So I'm really happy to have you here on the One Question Leadership Podcast.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be on. You know, the AFCA has been phenomenal to me, and a lot of the workshops and trainings, you know, I've been involved in as a participant and now as a speaker as well. So I appreciate the opportunities.
Yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, of course, I started a podcast back then when I was with the AFCA called The 2 Minute Warning. You were one of the first guests talking about, you know, year one as a head coach. So my affinity is still for leadership and professional development. Of course, I have you on today. I want to talk about kind of being a head coach in this pandemic chapter of global history, and specifically history here in the United States, and specifically the effect on college athletics. Being thrust into a difficult situation is nothing new for a football coach, right? As you guys are constantly making adjustments during games, during practice, everything is about adjusting accordingly as a football coach. But I wonder how this coming into January, February, March has affected your routine, right? Coaches, what I know is are very regimented into habits and those kind of things. I want to know how it affected your routine when this thing started. And then, of course, now how has your routine normalized over the past couple of weeks?
Yeah, so, you know, obviously a big change. You know, I think you're exactly right. I know for myself, I can speak, you know, to our program specifically. We're very structured. You know, we're very organized. I like to, you know, not only know what's going on that day, but know what's going on that week, know what's going on that month, know what's going on that year. I mean, we're a program that will have all our practices scheduled and organized for every bowl game that we could possibly play in, bowl tie-ins to the Big Ten Conference before the season starts. So, you know, once that announcement comes, we can hit the ground running. So this has been different. There's no doubt about it, you know, but what we try to do, like anything else, is, realize that this is really, you know, although it's extremely challenging and been problematic for our country and for our communities, it's also going to create some opportunities. It forces us outside of our comfort zone, allows a lot of our coaches to forces us to embrace technology maybe in some ways that we haven't in the past. It's also opened our eyes. There's going to be some silver linings there in terms of, you know, there's some things that we've learned that we're able to do from a distance that we could be taking advantage of at other times during the year. Vacation time with the coaches allow you to still have team meetings, position meetings, things like that. So, the first week was challenging, but, you know, after that, I think, you know, we've gotten kind of into a groove and comfortable with how we're going to work and grow as an organization during this time period.
Right. And of course, you know, when a coach is successful at what they're doing, the people who they lead go off and become leaders at other places, right? Either they become head coaches or they get other jobs around the country because their talents become necessary for other people to try to be successful. They want to have a piece of what you're doing. And of course, I think you made a few hires this past offseason. You come into, you know, end of the season last year, and then you start, you know, staff change. You hire guys either at the end of the year, beginning of the year, and usually you get a groove with them. team chemistry, you onboard them, they get to know their guys, but this year has to be a little different. Talk to me a little bit about how the unique onboarding process and also the process of the guys getting to know their unit in terms of assistant coaches when you have new members coming in at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, so I had a lot of guys leave our staff for promotions, which is a positive. I think that's a part of my job as well, is to help not only the players but the staff reach their dreams and potential as well. And our D-line coach left for a promotion to go to the Giants. Our receivers coach left for a promotion to be the coordinator at West Virginia. And my offensive coordinator left to go be the head coach at Old Dominion. So all promotions, all positives. But yeah, I think, the onboarding process, I think, is important. And, obviously the best way to get people adjusted is through communication and through time. So I think, for us, we staff meet every day, so during the season, we staff meet at 7 a.m. and in the off season, we staff meet at 8 a.m. Same thing during spring ball, we'll meet at 7 a.m. So I just think the more you communicate, the better. The less communication that's going on, the less interaction is going to take time for people to get it adjusted. Obviously, the better job you do during the interview process of talking about expectations and standards and what it's going to be like, the easier the transition goes. But it still takes some work after that. Every year we do 2 staff retreats, one in the spring and one before the season starts, to take time to talk about philosophy and goals and objectives and just kind of how we lead, what our core values are, what our overall philosophy is. That's not necessarily something that a lot of coaches like to do, but I think it's important. And if you don't do it as a leader of an organization over time, you think that the culture is ingrained and you think everybody understands the philosophy, but over time, as you lose coaches and add new ones, you don't. So I think it's really important, but I think it really just depends on your structure. If you meet every single day and there's a lot of communication about process, then I think it helps. But if you're a staff that doesn't, meet a whole lot and doesn't communicate a whole lot, I think that's going to set you up for issues in the future when things are slipping through the cracks.
I've interviewed Sandy Barber a couple times, athletics director there at Penn State, and one thing she always emphasizes is making sure everybody understands their why, whether it be personal or professional. And I imagine that's one of the things you lead with in terms of core values when you're bringing on people. In terms of what I do know about you real quick is that you are always looking for talent, whether it be staff, whether it be players, whatever it is, from the beginning, right? And so you've analyzed these people, their past, the people they've worked with and for, in terms of how you bring them on to fit into the purpose that you have there for leading a program there at Penn State.
Yeah, we're pretty much, every hire we make, we're very rarely going to go outside of the family. And I don't mean, that we're incestuous and we're only going to hire our own. What I'm saying is either people that we know that have come from our organization or, people that we know that I know care about Penn State, care about James Franklin and care about our university, that are going to recommend someone and recommend them strongly because they know they're going to be a great fit and be successful for us. So, it's hard for me to go outside and hire someone that I don't know or no one I know knows. I think that just helps to make sure it's going to be a good fit for both parties. To your point about Sandy Barber and knowing your why, I think that's really important. We talk about it with our team all the time. Because I think the reality is if you know why you're waking up every single morning, early in the morning, staying till late at night, working hard, whether it's running sprints or long hours or whatever it may be as a coach or as a player, if you truly understand why you do something and what motivates you, then I think it's a driving force. It's a driving force in your life. It's a driving force to be the best version of yourself day in and day out. And then I think it's also something to lean on when times get tough and you're questioning, well, why am I doing this or why am I doing this? And you can really go back to those core ingredients of what is your why? Is it your family? Is it your profession? Is it your future? What is it? What's the thing that drives you? Is it just that you love to compete? Is it just that you love the game? Is it, whatever it may be? I think it's really important that everybody truly understands, what's most important to them and why they do what they do, because you can lean on them in times of challenge.
Which is very important. Thinking back about this pandemic chapter, you talk about bringing guys on. I imagine you still have those meetings every day, whether it be by Zoom or phone call, whatever you guys do. Getting to know the nuances of somebody, of their interactions with the unit, that's probably difficult now. Talk to me about how you've had to adjust to that aspect of a new staff member in the last couple months.
Yeah, if this was in the early 1900s with the Spanish flu, I'm not sure how we do it. But the technology,
exactly.
The technology has just been phenomenal, and I think for us it's been pretty eye-opening that there's so many resources out there that we probably weren't taking advantage of the way we should have been. So yeah, the Zooms have been phenomenal. I mean, we have a team meeting today. We'll have 157 people in that Zoom team meeting, which is all of our trainers and doctors and players and coaches and staff and everybody. And it's amazing how much you can get done. And, again, you'd love for the new coaches to be around their players, but, it is what it is. That's not happening right now. So, getting on these Zoom sessions and being able to talk philosophy and fundamentals and scheme and technique, but also making sure that that we're all taking time to check on each other and see how everybody is from a physical health, from a mental health. How's your family doing? And have some conversations that aren't specific to the game. It's just about checking on each other and caring about each other as a family. I think, as highly motivated, driven individuals, sometimes you can forget that. And that's as important as the third down call or the coverage call that you're making or the pressure you're bringing. Being able to build that relationship and that rapport and that chemistry. So, sometimes it comes natural, and sometimes you got to be intentional and make sure it's happening, because it's just as important in football as it is in any other business organization.
That leads me to my next question, Coach. The well-being of the players, right? You got new people leading units, and of course, you mentioned 100 some odd guys. You got to keep your eye on in terms of knowing, is this person doing well, or are they not? What they say may not necessarily be how they actually feel. That's probably an adjustment too for you and for the coaches in terms of getting a feeling for the guys. I imagine you probably have the team structured so the input you receive from various players and various coaches, so you can keep a gauge on the well-being of the guys. Talk to us a little bit about that aspect of how you're doing that now.
Yeah, so what I do right now is I jump in each position meeting and just take a minute to talk, because in the team meeting, it's just too many people on there to have individual conversations. So I go to each position meeting and check in with the position coach, because a lot of times you spend all your time worrying about the players, but the coaches may be having issues as well. So I talk to all of them. Hey, how are you doing? Any issues, any problems, any things with your family that I need to be aware of that I can support them with? And it's not all negative. I mean, one of our offensive linemen, Caden Wallace, his mom just got her PhD. So being able to call mom and congratulate her on her PhD, or guys that have lost grandparents or have got friends or family member that are in the hospital right now, just checking on all those things. And then being able to say, hey, not everybody's going to be comfortable talking in this setting. You can pick up the phone and call me individually, one-on-one. We're here for you. So I just think it's again, making sure that you are intentional and you have a plan and you're strategic, that you're going to hit all these things. And again, understanding that the schemes are important, but morale, and chemistry is 10 times more important than scheme.
Yeah, I agree. I got two questions here before we wrap, Coach. The first one is relative to what we're talking about now, is what areas of concern, right? Obviously, you're looking at guys, and like you said, you're talking to guys, phone calls. And when you're at a school like Penn State, you got guys from all over the country from a number of different backgrounds. Coach Curry always used to talk about the huddle, right? In the huddle, you got people from the mountains of Appalachia from the streets of Los Angeles, and backgrounds are different. And being back home, can lead to different things in terms of environments. I wonder about what you're most concerned with during this time with your players.
Well, I think for us, we find that most of the players that we recruit, when we can get them in this structured, disciplined environment, they flourish. And, obviously now they go back home and some situations are great and supportive, but others aren't. So just understanding where our guys are, how they're doing. Some don't have bedrooms anymore. They're sleeping on couches or whatever it may be. And I think your point is a good one. I think what's great about the game of football is you got so many different people from so many different backgrounds and perspectives that come together and grow and learn from one another. So it makes it special. But there's no doubt about it that this is challenging. And I think not only do you need to take time to talk to your players about that, but you also got to spend time talking to your administration, the athletic administration and the administration for the university, because it's not just football players. It's all these students are going back to circumstances that maybe aren't as conducive to learning. I mean, we're having a staff meeting the other day, and my director of academic support, Todd Kolka, who's been with the university, in his role for like 22 years. He's been at the university for over 30 years. And obviously he's got a family and is doing well. He was having a hard time on Wi-Fi in our meeting the other day because he's got 5 family members in the house all on Wi-Fi at the same time, with schoolwork. So there's just a lot of challenges that we're dealing with that you normally don't. And that's with guys like Todd Kolka, who got a great situation at home. And we got players and staff that have more challenging situations. So it's just being, understanding and being able to empathize with everybody's situation, but still being able to challenge them and hold them accountable.
Right. Definitely. Last question here. A good friend of mine in the profession is Coach Glenn Caruso. He's the head football coach at University of St. Thomas out in Minnesota. And I told him I would be talking to you. And one of the things he noted was, I think I had you guys on a panel years ago, the GA Forum, Graduate Assistants Forum back at AFCA. And he had noticed every year after meeting you then that anytime he saw you in a session, you were taking notes, you were learning is important to you. And I wonder about now adjusting while there's a pandemic and your penchant for learning. Are you talking to other colleagues in the industry about how they're handling things? I mean, are you making some of these decisions on your own? Talk about your aspect of learning and development now in terms of, as a leader, continuous learning right now.
Well, I just think a couple things. I think, the point that you've kind of already made is you better be a lifelong learner. You better be trying to get better every single day, because the minute you think you have all the answers is when your career is going to go in the wrong direction. I've seen, plenty of people that were kind of hot coaches and fast risers, and then for whatever reason their career leveled off. Well, I think one of the things you better be careful of is as soon as you think you got all the answers in this profession, or really any profession, you're headed for a completely different path than maybe you were on. So whether that is listening to podcasts like this one, whether that is reading books, whether that is talking to other coaches and other athletic directors around the country. But I also think one of the mistakes that we make is we spend all of our time in our own world. So what I mean by that is you're spending all your time talking to just coaches and just ADs and just people in athletics, where there's so many people that work in other fields, whether it's in the military or whether it's in business or whatever it is. And there's so many parallels in what we do. So if you're only spending time talking to people within your circle, a lot of times you're going to have groupthink, and people are going to make the same mistakes, or you're going to get the same opinions over and over. So I think curiosity is a really important trait to have. And whether you're like that or having somebody on your staff that's going to challenge you like that, I think, Michael Hazel, who works on my staff, has been phenomenal for me in those areas. You just better be a lifelong learner. You better be curious, and you better want to grow in every area that you can, so you can help these young men achieve their dreams.
I agree with that. Is there an aspect of that you're applying now in terms of learning to adjust to the normal that we are experiencing at the moment in the country?
Yeah, so for me, it's reaching out to as many people as I possibly can to have conversations. Coaches in other sports, athletic directors. I've been part of some. There's a couple different leadership academies that we're a part of that are doing weekly sessions with all different people from all different backgrounds. It's picking up the phone and reaching out to some people that maybe you've wanted to get in touch with in the past, but haven't really had the opportunity or the time to do it. It's reading as much as you can, jumping into a book that you haven't had an opportunity to be able to read. It's all of it. My days are pretty much packed. I'm not really a sit in front of the computer for 9 hours type of guy, but it's just the nature of the beast right now.
It is. Well, Coach, this conversation has been very educational. Hopefully the people listening have picked up something from the things you provided with us, and I really appreciate you joining us here on the One Question Leadership Podcast.
I appreciate the opportunity, and I've enjoyed getting to know you all the way back to our AFCA days. So I wish you the best of luck, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That was Coach James Franklin. He's the head football coach at Penn State. And of course, this is Ty Brown with One Question. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today. This episode of the One Question Leadership Podcast is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.